What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Big Break Show. And today I have a special episode for you guys because I have my dear friend, Mr. Trevor B. West. And I say special episode because Trevor's someone who I hold close to my circle of group of friends, who's just a very dear person, just a fantastic person overall, just a great guy. And funny story, when I first met Trevor, I met him as the MC of Legacy Family Mastermind, which you all know I'm a huge fan about, who just now merged with Collective Genius, by the way. So if you guys have questions on that, let me know. But the reason I wanted to bring this up is because when you talk to Trevor, you wouldn't even know that he's an MC. He is a real estate investor, faith-based entrepreneur, very, very successful in the multifamily space. And he just started doing this no more than a handful of years ago. He's actually been investing in real estate for 7 years, but he really just got his foot in the door in the larger multifamily deals over the past couple of years. And I've been able to see his growth, and we've become very close. When you get to talk to him and when you get to see him and you get to meet him, you just tell he's just a genuine, good overall person that truly cares about you and what you're about. And I'm happy to have him on the show because, again, seeing his growth and seeing what he's done and the deals that he talks about that he's acquired. I mean, he's got a crazy deal where he bought 20 units for under $1 million and he built $1 million in equity. And I was like, holy cow, dude. And again, when you talk to him, all you think is he's an MC because that's what he talks about. But when you meet him in person, outside of these mastermind groups, when he's not MCing, you wouldn't know he's an MC because all he ever talks about is real estate. So I'm like, I got to have you on the show, dude, so we can talk to you about your deals, what you're doing, and so that people know that you're also an MC. And I always promote him, of course, in all the events that I go to because I think this guy seriously is next to none at MCing. The way that he presents people on stage is just fantastic. So if anybody out there is going to an event and you know that the MC sucks, refer my boy Trevor. With that being said, I'll see you inside. I hope you guys enjoy this episode.
Welcome to The Big Break Show, your go-to podcast for real estate investing, business acquisition, mindset, and lifestyle.
Trevor, buddy, what's up, man? Thanks for coming on the show. I'm excited to have you today. It's been a while, and now that I'm on season 3, I'm excited to have people that I'm close to that align with the values and everything that we talk about on the show here. So, yeah, man, thanks for coming on.
Always a pleasure. It's a good time to be able to have some conversations because we don't really get to do it very often in person. The virtual model is as good as we can get, and man, I'm looking forward to chatting with my buddy.
You know, it's funny because we've become really good friends over the past couple of years, but we see each other like 2 or 3 times a year now. We used to see each other a little bit more before, but it's always nice to kind of catch up. So, dude, welcome to the Big Break Show. Before we get started, I always ask the speakers that I'm interviewing. I do an intro in the beginning of the episode of who you are, what you're about, what you do. But it always sounds really nice when somebody themselves talks about their experience, what they're into, what they do, how they got from where they were to where they're at now, which is basically the premise of the show is getting beginners to a higher level of investing, or even people that are already kind of doing well, but don't have the mindset or the lifestyle that they think they can accomplish and things like that. And so I always ask, what's your story? Who are you? What are you about? What do you do in life? What's your business? That way people understand and something's coming from your words. Do you mind giving an intro, please?
I'll just give a quick high level of where I'm at right now. So obviously, my name's Trevor B. West. I am currently residing in Ohio. I'm a multifamily real estate investor, and I've been doing this for coming up on 7 years. I'm in my 6th year of investing, and we have 85 multifamily units spread out across 17 buildings in 2 different states, North Carolina and Ohio. We're divesting of all of our stuff in North Carolina. I have a partner on 1 4-unit building. We're selling that and just going to focus primarily here on Ohio. And the majority of the success that I've had in real estate has honestly occurred in the last 2 years. So going back to the beginning, if you will, so I was in the military. I was an Air Force intelligence analyst, and I got to do some really cool stuff. But primarily in the military, I learned about camaraderie. I learned about pushing the limit. I learned about what it looked like to be on a team and to execute at a high level. Because where I worked for the majority of my Air Force careers, I was a Special Forces intelligence analyst, where I worked with SEAL Team 6, Delta Force, Army Rangers, CIA, FBI, and we did a number of different things that I won't get into the details here. But all that to say, is I just learned what it was like to build target packages, whether it's on an individual or on a particular area. Because my expertise, I needed to know who you were, what you did, where you were at, who your friends were, where you lived, what that area around your village is like. Is it sentimental to U.S. forces? Is it against U.S. forces? And then it just elevated me to a high level of responsibility because then informing my team, this is what your area of operations is going to look like, and here's the dangers. And so I really loved what I did. I truly enjoyed it. I have some incredible memories and some incredible friends and experiences that I had during that time. And near the 6th and 7th year of me being in the military, I started to lose the love for what I was doing because we weren't doing as many cool things as we used to. Honestly, we started to shift into some more very analytical, more boring work. And I just started to ask myself, is this really what I see myself doing for the next 12 to 13 years? And when you ask people who are in the military, the common phrase is just wait till if you're already at 10 years, just do another 10. And I couldn't get past the idea of another decade. That is a really long time. So me and my good buddies, we all went and joined the rugby team. And I ended up getting my leg snapped on the rugby team, and it just changed my life forever. It was honestly the greatest thing that ever happened to me because snapping my leg and all of my roommates deploying at the time, for the first time in my life, I was alone with my thoughts. I'm a very extroverted person. I love being around people, but I had never taken any time to just think about who I am, where I'm at, and what my life looks like. And after you burn through about 100 hours of Netflix, you start to ask yourself those deeper questions. And honestly, I got a little fearful because I'm thinking, what am I going to do with my life? I don't love what I'm doing anymore, but I don't have a plan for something else. I was $20,000 in credit card debt because I couldn't say no. From going out to eat, to going to the bars, to buying things that I didn't need, to driving a car I had no business driving, I had buried myself in this debt hole. So I thought, I've got to do something. I got to take some steps towards action. And the successful people around me were going to get their college degrees. And so I went and took a math class. I thought if I can get through a math course, I can get through the rest of college. It'll be a breeze. So long story short, got to the final exam and I quit because they were going to proctor it and I had been cheating the entire time. So I thought if college is going to look like this, I don't want anything to do with it. So I thought I've got to fix my money situation. And if I can be successful with my money, I'll be successful anywhere. So I went and bought a bunch of books. I didn't know where to start. Think and Grow Rich, Simple Path to Wealth, Accounting 101, The Richest Man in Babylon. And of course, everybody who's listening knows Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Never read a book cover to cover until I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read it in 2 days and it changed my life forever because I knew this is something that I can build with my 2 hands. I don't need permission. I don't need a degree, and I can just go for it. Whatever I put in is exactly what I'll get out. And I went on a huge personal development journey. And one of the things that I learned from a book called The Compound Effect is to take action. Don't get stuck in analysis paralysis. Go do the thing. So I decided on what I was going to do in real estate, which was multifamily. And I went in 90 days. I decided that I was going to buy my first building. So I went out, I bought a 3-unit multifamily property with my VA loan. And once I started seeing the checks from that roll in, I knew I was on to it. I knew I was on to something. I knew if I just continued on that path, I'd be able to leave the military and go pursue that full time, which is exactly what I did. I went and bought a duplex, and those 2 properties combined would have been the same amount in retirement that I would have gotten from 20 years serving in the military. I got in 2 properties in less than a year. And so on that moment, I decided, dude, I'm pulling chalks. I'm out of here and I'm going to go pursue this thing. So I went and got my real estate license so I could continue to have active income. I continued to buy properties. And in that season, I just insulated myself with highly motivated, highly successful people. Anybody that would be willing to pour into me and me pour into them, I was with it. And I just insulated myself. And that increased my ability to go and buy property. I partnered with a friend of mine. We went and bought 8 units together and just skyrocketed from there. In terms of my first 12 months investing, I bought 14 units.
60% of operators added AI last year to their business, and you'd think it'd be dynamic pricing. That's the sexy one. It wasn't. The biggest one across the board, hands down, was guest communication through AI. Makes sense. If you've ever ran this business, the messages literally never stop. Check-in time, Wi-Fi password, is there a blow dryer, how do we park? Always the same questions over and over. I added HelloHost to handle that layer for me now. It runs on top of my property management software, and it responds to guests so good, not sounding like a robot at all, which was my biggest concern about using AI, the AI slop through messaging. This wasn't some fancy AI pricing algorithm, something simple that helped escalate our business and save all of our team members a lot of time. If you're still running 1, 2, or even 3 short-term rentals right now, and you're still responding to messages or relying on your PMS to answer them for you, you're probably leaving a lot of time on the table and a lot of really good reviews on the table. I suggest you check this out.
So then I joined Legacy Family, which is a mastermind of super high-level real estate entrepreneurs. And this was the X factor in the future, because when I first joined Legacy Family, I wasn't quite ready to make that leap, because what I entered into were people who have been in the industry for decades, people who have really sharpened their expertise. So I got a little bit of shiny object syndrome, dude. I was jumping from thing to thing, short-term rentals, mobile home parks. I'd leave every 3 months. We'd have an event, and I would leave with a new invigoration for an entirely different industry. Turns out it's really hard to start from scratch every 3 months. So I'd get 6 weeks into it, and I'd be like, oh, no, they make it seem easy because they've been doing it for 15 years. So I really needed to learn that lesson. And that was a 2.5 to 3 year lesson that I needed to learn. Paying for education, paying for relationships. And when I finally came out of that, dude, I was sitting right here at this desk. I'm like, I have got to figure it out. I had wasted tens of thousands of dollars putting earnest money deposits down on projects that never closed and weren't even close to closing because I didn't have my mind in the right space. My entire mindset was, I have to buy real estate so I can be successful in this group. I have to buy real estate so I'll be something or someone. And that was the completely wrong methodology to walk forward in. So I decided multifamily real estate. I'm going to put my blinders on. And honestly, this was a huge faith moment for me too, because I'm not sure if your listeners are faith-based, but I certainly am. And you and I have had conversations about that. And I honestly needed to give my business to God. I sitting right here at this desk, I just said, God, this business is yours. It has nothing to do with me, my level of success, who I present myself as in the marketplace, but just be a reflection of you. You're the owner of my business, and I'm just a manager. And literally from that moment, that next week, I'd been trying to buy a commercial multifamily building, 2 6 units, perfect deals, fell right into my lap. We closed on them same day, raised the capital through the mastermind group, fixed them up, renovated them, refied, and then literally a month later, a 28 unit portfolio came and we closed on that. Why? Because everybody knew Trevor buys small multifamily properties. And I told my agents, hey, I'll buy portfolios. I don't care what it is. Let's buy portfolios. Let's buy multifamily. This is my buy box. Let's go. And as soon as I started projecting, this is exactly what I want, dude, they brought me those deals, closed on 28 units. A month later, another real estate agent brought me a 17 unit portfolio. All of these buildings needed completely remodeled. So over the course of the next 12 to 14 months, we purchased and renovated 45 apartment units, and it was insane. I mean, we had 5 crews going at any given time. We raised all the capital to get it done. We refinanced out of those, bought a 17 unit. And honestly, it's just been an incredible journey moving forward, being secure in who I am and who I present myself to the marketplace as, mainly through my faith, but also just the diligence and discipline required to be able to grow that quickly. Because in the last 2 years, we bought 80 units. In the 2 to 3 years prior to that, I bought 2 units. So it's really been a test, and it's been a great journey.
Dude, that was quite the intro, man. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, and I'm glad you went into depth here in detail from going to the military to where you're at now. And it's funny when you talk about how all of a sudden things start coming your way. A lot of our listeners are faith-based. A lot of them probably aren't. I don't know. We don't focus on that. We just talk about mindset, like real estate investing, short-term rentals, mid-term rentals, and then kind of just getting people over the hurdle of starting or moving to that next level in investing. But it's funny you say that because, obviously, I'm super faith. And like one of the things that I don't really talk about a lot is that. Not that I'm opposed to talking about it or anything like that. It's just, it doesn't ever come up. Only when it's like on a personal conversation, when like, for example, when you and I have these conversations. But it's funny you say that because when you start focusing and giving yourself up, and even if it's to God or whatever people believe in, energy or whatever, like the law of attraction and all that other stuff that everybody talks about. It's funny because things really do start coming your way in that direction, right? When I started doing the short-term rental thing, after a while of me just being focused on that and putting all my time and effort into that, dude, it was like a constant like flood of units.
Opportunities.
Opportunities. Thank you. Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. It was just like one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. And look, I'm the same as you. Everything I do it for God, right? And if it wasn't for God, like I wouldn't be where I'm at now. When you put it into perspective, aside from that, when you're focused on one specific thing, and I bring this up because you also talked about how you were like, hey, I joined Legacy and I was in 40 different directions every 3 months. 1 month I want to do this, right? 3 months later, I'm talking about doing this. I think we're all susceptible to that. Every single person that's out there that's tried to get into invest, because there's so much knowledge out there. Everybody's listening to podcasts and listening to random information, and they're like, oh, I like that. And it's the shiny object syndrome. At one point or another, you get distracted and you start going down the rabbit hole of 40 different things. It's like, which one do you pick? And you're not going to accomplish any of them unless you pick one and actually stick to it. For me, it was short-term rentals. When I started doing short-term rentals, I got really good at them. And then I joined Legacy, and same thing. I was like, oh, I want to start doing real estate. And I've talked about this story millions of times on this podcast. And I was like, hey, I want to jump in to do multifamily. Hey, I want to do self-storage. Hey, I want to start buying single family portfolios. And Tim at the Legacy event, Tim's the guy that runs it, but the listeners, I've actually had Tim on the podcast as well. And he sat down and he's like, dude, if you're really good at something, why don't you just focus on that and go all in? And I did. And business did this, right? For you, it's interesting that you happen to choose multifamily, especially right now, dude, in 2026. There's a lot of people that are getting crushed in multifamily, a lot, right? Because they got into these loans and they got into these deals, and right now terms are coming due, and a lot of people can't get out of the loan. There's no better way to say it. I want to know your thoughts behind that before I actually start touching on your life story here, because I took a ton of notes and there's a bunch of questions that I have, but I want to know your thoughts around the multifamily deal and why did you choose multifamily over everything else?
That's a great question. Before I bought my first property, I wanted to learn everything. I really wanted to know that what I was choosing was going to be the right strategy, because you hear other investors warn about the shiny object syndrome. So my local community college actually put on a real estate investing 101 course. Never even heard of it before.
Wow.
$75, 6 weeks at your own pace. And they taught everything: wholesaling, foreclosures, short sales, flipping, multifamily. And instead of going to the internet and getting pulled in a million directions there, I had this course where I could just learn them all. And what was available to me at the time, and I think that's an important piece to pull out, is what is the land that is available to you to work? The Bible talks about that. Work the land that is in front of you. And the option for me was the VA loan was a 0% down, up to 4 units opportunity. So I figured I would get the most bang for buck out of using my VA loan. And so with that, it was multifamily, and that's the course that I went on. And it just, the more I learned about it, the more it solidified in my mind. You get one acquisition with multiple units. You can grow those. Let's say you have a 4-unit building and you have 1 vacancy. Your other 3 units are still producing income, instead of you waiting for you to turn that unit and put a new renter in there, and you have the mortgage and the holding costs and all the things that come along with that. So that was just the most efficient and effective mode for me to continue buying real estate. And once you buy one, you can just rinse and repeat that whole model. So within the context of, larger multifamily, because we have stepped into more commercial multifamily opportunities, One of the very first conversations I had with this mentor of mine, I haven't talked to him ever since, but he left me with this one piece of knowledge. He said, everybody says location, 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 but I say price, price, price. And that has never left my mind. And what it has instilled in me is the price matters the most, because if you pay less for the property, you have so much more wiggle room to make mistakes. You have more wiggle room when it comes to the appraisal. You have more wiggle room when it comes to how much you can renovate the properties for. So it is absolutely critical to buy well below market value. Any acquisition, any opportunity that we have, it must first be able to be BRRRRable. That is my criteria. It must be able to be a perfect BRRRR, meaning I buy the property for well below market, I renovate the property, and it's still 70% of what the bank is willing to give me. That way, when I get refied out, I can pay out my hard money lender, I can pay out my investor, and I get to keep the property 100%. Whereas on the flip side of that, people who are doing larger multifamily, which is a direction we're heading in, but they have to do syndications. They have to raise a bunch of capital. They have to give away a bunch of equity, and they're buying these properties on 5-year, 30-year AMs, but they're 5-year maturities. So when these loans come due, interest rates are up, man, they've got to pay a ton of people, and it leaves them upside down. So by being able to build my portfolio, we own 100%. I own 100% of 81 units. I have 4 units that I don't own 100% of, 50-50. But because of that, when I shift into buying 50 unit buildings or opportunities plus, I'm going to be in a much better place because I've got 81 units that are cash flowing as my foundation of income, which will open me up to do more opportunities. So when these loans come due, your boy's going to be ready on the sidelines to buy some of these properties that go up for fire sale.
Yeah, I love that. And you explained it very well. Dude, I mean, you talked about a lot of really high level terms here. I hope you're making YouTube videos about this, which we'll touch on your YouTube channel shortly here, because I know a lot of people are going to go and research what these terms are. And a lot of the stuff that you're saying, like syndications and the 30-year AM with the 5-year terms, we're not going to take the time to explain that here. If you guys are listening to this, Trevor's got a fantastic YouTube channel that he just started where he's teaching this kind of stuff. That's why I said, Trevor, hopefully you're dropping videos on this. And if not, there's a bunch of resources out there. But I like the fact that you said, I own 100% of mine and I'm not doing syndications on them. Now, you might go towards that in the future. I don't know. But the difference here is a lot of people that are getting wrecked in real estate were buying, giant complexes, 300, 400, 500 door units where you have to go raise private money unless you have a big bag sitting in the bank or, you're some kind of trust fund baby to buy these things outright. You're buying small multi-commercial. Now, something that's, I want to make a very key distinction here for a lot of people. Trevor said first one he bought was a 0 to 4 unit. That's multifamily residential. And then there's multifamily commercial, 2 different deals here. Now, multifamily residential could be anything 4 units and under. You're still susceptible to the residential lending laws. Anything above 4 units, you go into commercial lending laws, and obviously the units get bigger and more doors under one roof. Scalability is bigger. There's all this fun stuff. But I like the idea that you said, I'm buying everything 100% into small commercial multifamily, which means, what are you doing? You're raising private capital, I'm assuming, for them to get the down payments. And now you're doing BRRRRable, which means BRRRRable, you're buying them so undervalued that you raise the capital for what? Like, let's say the down payment, and correct me when I'm done talking here, you can fix whatever I'm saying, but you're raising capital for the down payment. You're raising capital for maybe the CapEx, the capital expenditures, the repairs, furniture, fixture, and equipment stuff as well, the FF&E, I'm assuming. And then you're getting a hard money loan and putting it in. And then once it's ready, you refinance out. And because it's BRRRRable, you're able to refinance the entire loan back out. And then you go into long-term debt. How are you doing these deals?
Basically got it to a T. So I'll just talk about the 28 unit portfolio. So September of 2024, we closed on 28 units. It was a mix of 6 different buildings, a 10, a 5, a 4, and 3 3-unit buildings. We bought the property for $940,000, all the units. I used a hard money loan for the acquisition because our whole plan was add value. We're going to renovate all these units. So we used hard money to acquire the property. And then I raised the renovation capital and all the things, the holding costs, all the things through a private investor. Now, here's where when your experience and I believe personability, likability, and your ability to show that you can close adds a ton of value to your acquisition process. Because back when I bought those 2 6-unit buildings, man, I did everything that I said I was going to do and paid back my hard money lender, paid back my private investor. So when it came to this bigger deal, everyone was happy to do it. And because I had a great relationship with my hard money lender, they were willing to pay the down payment. So I raised additional capital for them to bring the down payment, and my private lender brought in the renovation capital. And then it took us 12 to 14 months to get everything renovated, finalized, and then we refinanced out. So when we refied, we bought for $940,000, but when we refinanced, the property in total was worth 1.935. So we literally added $1 million of value to that property, the entire portfolio, which gave us plenty of room to pay back our hard money lender, pay back our private investor at refinance, and then focus our eyes on the next target. And of course, the hard work still is there when you refinance, because it takes time. What I'm learning is it takes about 6 to 8 months to fully stabilize these opportunities. And that's why rental real estate is slow money. But in the long term, man, it's going to pay dividends for generations to come.
Yeah, dude. I mean, this is an incredible deal. Number one, you bought 28 units for $940K, bro. And it's funny to me because I can't buy one house in California for $940K. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, no joke. And it ties to what you said. A lot of people are like, well, your mentor, location. He said price. And it's true. You know, if I'm focused on California, I'm focused on the location. I'm not going to buy or be able to scale what you're doing at 28 units. Like, holy cow. Now, granted, you happen to be in that market. For a lot of people, it's going to be difficult. I live in California. I have to figure out a way for me to work in California, right? So it's very different circumstances. And people need to understand that. They're not going to just move and go in different locations. But the fact that you added $1 million to this thing is just insane. I mean, you more than doubled. You bought it for $940K, 28 units. You rehabbed it. You raised private money. You paid interest on the loan. And then you got it valued at 1.935. Bro, that's wild. That is a home run. That's like a grand slam.
Yeah.
Now, tell me about the cash flow. How much are you cash flowing on this 28 unit?
So our metric for anything is my company is going to net $200 per door. That's after all expenses are paid, $200 net. That is our target. Right now we're sitting at about $183 per door. Now there's a number of things that we're still smoothing out, right? We filled these units really fast because in order to refinance, you have to have 90% occupancy, not 89, not 89.4, 90%. So we had to have 25 out of 28 units filled. So we filled them as quickly as we could. And we are really good at vetting some of our renters, but we've relaxed some of our rules so that we needed to get to refi in the time frame that we had proposed, because I wanted to pay my private money investor back early. I planned to do the project for 12 months, but we held the money for 18. Now, if I pay my investor back in less time, how much more inclined are they going to be to work with me again? So that $183 per door net is steadily on the rise as we just continue to refine operations. And I can't stress that enough. It's easy to buy the property. The hard work begins when you close, and then the hard work continues when you refinance and you work to truly stabilizing these properties so you can move on to new opportunities.
So, you're looking at around $5,600 free and clear cash flow at the end of it. And you're going to be all out, right? 100% out, zero out of pocket on this deal?
Yes.
And how much equity are you going to have built into it?
Let's see. We purchased it for $940. We added about $400,000 of equity on this deal.
Yeah, so I asked that because you appraised it at 1 million. So technically you've added $1 million in equity, but you're not going to have $1 million in equity in the deal because you got to pull out the investor's money, your CapEx money, and then whatever that loan's going to be. So with everything said and done, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter. I was just curious as to what you were doing, but if you're going to have 400,000 in equity sitting there, plus your $5,600 in cash flow, and this thing's going to cash flow the rest of your life as long as you're holding it, I mean, bro, that's a grand slam. I mean, I'm glad you brought this up. This is a great deal to talk about on the episode. It gives everybody a very good perspective of what you can accomplish. And it took you how long to get this from the ground up?
So we closed September of 2024. We acquired it and we refinanced in November of 2025.
Wow. So you're talking
it was 13, 14 months.
Yeah. 14 months. That's insane, dude.
Which is actually
good for you.
It took longer than I had anticipated because I thought thank God for incredible mentors because I wasn't even thinking like this. And this is the value of being in a mastermind. This is the value of being around people who have felt the pain of growing quickly, felt the pain of the things that you want to accomplish and being around them because a good friend of mine who was in Legacy Family at the time, Seth Teagle, he owns hundreds of apartment units. And I was talking to him on the cusp of closing on these. And he said, listen, if you have these on a 12-month loan, you're going to want to have everything done and have it occupied at month 9. And I thought, well, by golly gee, I hadn't really thought of that. It takes time to go through the refinance process. You've got to get appraisals and inspections, and you've got to get your credit pulled and all the things that they're going to do to make sure that this is a viable investment. Because I was going to use one crew when we first started. And we're just going to use one crew to take us 10 to 14 days to turn a unit. And that's stinking thinking in the sense of, oh, it's all going to work out. So we just amplify how many crews can we go at one time. And that turned into 5 crews at any given time, which then expedited our process. And of course, sharpened me as an operator because I was brought to a higher level of responsibility, just like when I was in the service and I was dealing with people's lives when it came to the battle space. I see the real estate investing arena the same way. These are people that I'm paying. I have a livelihood here at home to take care of. And all those things.
Yeah, I love that, dude. It's funny. I bring this up every episode, but the common denominator and the common factor that we all have is everybody that I've brought on is either in some sort of mastermind or has some sort of mentor in this space. I've brought a lot of people from Legacy onto the show because they're just people that are just crushing at life, right? And in business and just doing fantastic things. It's funny when I asked you to come on, I didn't think we are going to be talking this deep into real estate, multifamily, but this was such a fantastic example that you just gave, man. I mean, I'm still kind of like, wow, like I should move to Ohio and start buying multifamily. You know what I mean? Like, what am I doing in California? Good for you, dude. I'm actually excited. And I say that genuinely because I've known you before you got into this super high level multifamily, and you've accomplished it in the time that I've known you from beforehand to where you're at now, right? And we talked about you getting into short-term rentals and maybe even doing midterm rentals, and you're like, it just wasn't what resonated with you. And I'm glad that you found your niche. And I know you're gonna crush at it, dude. So I want to shift a little bit here and talk about the partnership structures that you're doing, because you said you've only bought 4 doors with a partner and everything else is 100% you. So tell me a little bit about that. Why are you against partnerships, or is it you're just focused on figuring out how you can do it yourself? Because I tell a lot of people, right? Like you can go far yourself, but you can go a whole lot farther with someone else. And everything I've ever done, I've done with partners. Now I've had some really shitty partnerships that have just completely burned me. That's because I've been careless or reckless or too trusting, all on my own fault, 100% ownership. But I've also had some partners that have just been fantastic, that have been able to elevate me to the next level every single time. And so I'm just curious as to why you're choosing to do everything yourself and not being able to do partners, and how you feel about going further with partners and without partners.
That's a huge question. And so I had a partner, and I still do. We're selling that final property in. This is one of my best friends that I'm partnered with. I mean, we just had my baby shower this last Saturday. He came into town from North Carolina, him and his wife and his kids. And I mean, this is somebody that is just very near and dear to my heart. And when we were buying properties together, it worked out really well. But there was a couple things that didn't resonate with me really well, which the first one on the more shallow end, I mean, when you're buying properties with a partner, you're splitting everything 50-50. So for me to be able to cash flow what I want to cash flow, we got to go buy twice as many doors. And one of the most valuable things I've learned from Tim Bratz, who runs Legacy Family Mastermind, is he bought thousands of units over across like 4 or 5 years. And he said, listen, owning 4,000 units is not fun and it's not cool. Like
Yeah.
it is a Mount Everest of headaches. And so more doors doesn't always equal more freedom. And so splitting everything 50-50, you got to buy double the amount to reach the goals that you want to reach. The second part of that, I was in a big transitionary phase in my life and alignment was a big thing. My partner, while I love him to death and he's one of my closest friends, at that time, I was pursuing the Lord and I wanted to go deeper on that. And my partner, when you're in a partnership, especially one where we've decided we're going to go buy a bunch of units together and we're going to grow this business, it is really like a marriage. I've learned a lot about how you can structure partnerships so it's not that way. However, I'm going to do life with these people for years, and I wanted to make sure that my business was going in the direction that I wanted to lead it. And when you have 50-50 partnership, you can't necessarily do that, and you can't have two heads there's no businesses that are operating with two CEOs that work really well. And I just really value the hierarchy. I value being able to have that level of control, and not control in the sense that I want to manage everything on my own, but I want to be able to pick and choose what level of work do I want to invest in this season. One of the most valuable things about being in real estate is the freedom, right? Hey, I'm going to take some time and I'm going to share with my wife. I'm only going to work a few hours today. So my wife and I can go on a date day or a date night, or I can go be here with family. And you don't always have that level of freedom when you have a partnership, because now you want to make sure both partners are carrying equal weight. So as I look towards to partnerships in the future, I can see the value of them. And I'm not holistically opposed to them, but I've also recognized what I've been able to build with 100% equity across 81 units is it gives me a lot more decision-making power and flexibility on the partnerships that I choose to enter into should I do that in the future.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there that you're saying, and I'm trying to take as much notes as possible as I go this, because you bring a lot of good talking points. But I always picked a few things that I really like in these conversations, and there's a fine line that you got to walk when you're in a partnership. The fact that you're saying we don't align, I totally understand that, right? One person goes in one direction, the other person's going in a different direction. You didn't say exactly we don't align, but the gist of it, right? Yeah. Now, the idea here is if you partner with someone, this is kind of fresh in my head because I just recorded a whole course about it for my school community. But when you're partnering with somebody, there's got to be a level of synchronicity where, I'm solving a specific problem. He's solving a specific problem. I have a specific talent. The other person has specific talent. I might bring something to the table. He or she might bring something to the table. I might bring experience. They might bring money. I might bring money. They might bring experience, right? I might bring in knowledge and experience. They might bring in the hard work, right? The boots on the ground and the grinding and everything that I don't have the time to do. Now, there's things like time, money, and what's the three things that everybody talks about? You either bring time, you bring money, or what's the third?
You bring experience.
Experience, thank you, right? And whenever you partner with someone, it's got to be one of those three things. However, and you said this key, dude, they got to align with you in life, values, everything you want to do. And you got to make sure everybody's going in the same direction. So I have a lot of partners that they're just not in the same direction I'm at. And after a while, I'm like, this is great. Our partnership is going good, but we're no longer aligned. It doesn't mean I'm going to go and shut everything down, but what we've done before is going to stay there, and everything going forward, I'm just going to do my own thing. Right. And I've had a lot of partners because we didn't align. They wanted to do things in their own way. It's blown up deals and it's causes a lot of money. And it's caused a lot of headaches and a lot of problems. But with all that being said, dude, I genuinely still believe that partnerships are the best way to go further based on the relationships and the knowledge that those people have that you're basically going into account with, right? And that's just in business, but even if we were to put it into example in life, right? Our partners, like your wife and my fiance, if it wasn't for them, dude, I mean, I don't know where I would be, right? Lorena was the one that pushed me to join Legacy. She was like, dude, you're spending money on BS. Spend money on something important. And if it wasn't for that one thing, I would be like, yeah, I'd probably still be stuck playing PlayStation, thinking I've retired already, trying to figure out life, not knowing the knowledge that I have, not doing these podcasts, not meeting the people that I've met, not having this conversation with you. And so that partnership and that relationship aligns, right? And even though we both go like this, sometimes there's that friction, we still ultimately come back and we align and we decide to go in the same direction. And again, if it wasn't for that partnership, I still don't know where I would be. So there's a lot that I agree with you on. And there's a few things I disagree on, which is the beauty of these conversations. And I hope that the listeners and viewers are getting good feedback from both perspectives, because I think you understand where I'm coming from. And it's not that it's completely opposed to what you're saying, because you hit on it perfectly. But you can do a lot by yourself, but you can go further with other people. But you can go further by yourself as long as you're leveraging other people. You don't necessarily have to partner with them, but you can be with those people and use their knowledge and their experience to go further as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that I'm learning, and again, the plan for our business, especially on the cusp of, a lot of loans are going to be coming due. People might be scared of multifamily. I think that there's going to be a lot of big opportunities. One of the things I learned through buying 45 units and renovating them all in 12 to 14 months is leveraging out and delegating, right?
Yeah.
Because Seth Teagle on the conversation, the guy who had helped me kind of figure out what I needed to do through this process, he had also encouraged me to, hey, bring on third-party property management just for the first year so you can kind of, you don't have to necessarily run that. I didn't end up doing that because I just have a really bad taste in my mouth from third-party property management, not just from my own personal experience, but from pretty much all the high-level operators that I've come into contact with. So from the beginning, I wanted to do in-house property management. Now, going third party would have been a partnership. I'm going to partner with third party to manage and operate this portfolio and this opportunity. Whereas I went and hired internally because we expanded so much and we were cash flowing more. I was then able to hire somebody in-house. And now I'm able to design the alignment of where my company is going. We are a multifamily investment company. That's just what we do. So when I design where we're going, it's within those structures. So the more that I continue on, the more I realize, man, I can delegate some of these tasks where I have, my partner that I have that 4-unit with. He actually started a bookkeeping business because that was his strong suit. So he does our books, not my strong suit, but I can still leverage out and delegate those things while still maintaining. Now, when it comes to, super high level tasks, again, I agree. When we go to look at those 50, 100, 200 unit opportunities, I look forward to bringing in partners that I'm aligned with. But of course, it's faith first for me. You've got to be committed and submitted to the Lord for anything like that to come to fruition from my perspective.
Yeah, man, I love that. I love that a lot. And I love that you have your values and you don't stray from the path, dude. Like I admire that quite a bit, because there's a lot of people, and even me sometimes, I'm like, yeah, but still, it's like a lot of people they're not as strong in terms of what you're saying. You know what I mean? Let me tell you about the software that actually runs my business. Hospitable. I run properties in a few different markets and I do it all remotely. I'm not pulling that off without one place holding everything together. All your calendars sync in real time. Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com, Google, your direct booking site, all of it talking to each other in real time. So you don't get double booked. And if that's ever happened to you, you know how bad it is. Refunds, bad reviews, lost reservations. It's a pain in the butt. Hospitable's new dynamic pricing is built right in it now. It updates your rates every day off the market and pushes them out everywhere for you. And you can do markups per OTA. You're not touching it once. You just have to oversee it every now and then to make sure it's correct. You can even build your own direct booking website on the platform and get you on Google so that you can take bookings without giving up those OTA fees. We all know about the 15.5% fee. And the operation side is honestly my favorite part. It assigns your cleaners around every booking. You pay them right there in the app, and it spits out a new door code for every single guest. And my favorite part is their newest addition, the upsells. We've made about $450 this week on upselling early check-ins, late checkouts, and entertainment packages. Something like 300,000 operators run on Hospitable at the moment. If you're scaling and you're downsizing your tabs and don't want to do more work, you should definitely check out Hospitable. Links in the description. Now, and I appreciate that the way you explain situations with these partnership deals. I want to shift again because we're running short on time here, and I want to stay within the hour. But going from Air Force intelligence to trying to figure out what you can do in life based on a broken leg, right? And I want to bring this up, which is funny because you just happened to come across Rich Dad Poor Dad, which changed your life. When people listen to like other real estate podcasts, that's like the common denominator. It's the Rich Dad Poor Dad. It changed people's lives. But I know a lot of people that have read it and they just kind of brush it off and they're like, yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
They're not really understanding it. I also, and the reason why I'm bringing this one up is because I also feel that even though it's such a great mindset book, I think you have to be in the right state or in the right place for it to really impact you, for it to make any sort of a change or effect in your life. When I read it, I had just quit my collection agency and I was trying to figure out what to do with my life. And I was working at the casino and I'm like, I don't even remember how it came across my desk. I picked it up and I started reading it and I'm like, holy cow, I've been wasting 30 years of my life. Literally, that's what I said. I was like, I'm 30 years of my life. I need to get into real estate. And it just led me down this huge rabbit hole. And again, living in California, I couldn't do what you're doing with the 28 doors. So the biggest thing was for me was short-term rentals. It's just the best way to cash flow and be able to stay on top in the California market. And so I brought this up because talking about your faith and and, turning over your company to God and then reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, everything kind of falls into alignment when it's supposed to fall into alignment. I'm a big believer that things fall into place when they're supposed to fall into place. Something always happens for a reason. For example, every time I run into a situation, I pray about it all the time. I mean, I pray every night regardless, but I think that might be the first time I ever say this on the podcast. But, this is something I've been doing since I was a child. But every time I feel that whenever I'm in a situation, whether it's a good one or a bad one, the outcome always falls in line to solve that specific problem at the perfect freaking moment. You get what I'm saying? For example, we've talked about when I had to close down the 80 units and I was like, holy shit, what's going to happen? Like, I'm like stressed out, and I'm like, you know what? I pray about it. I'm like, God's going to help me find a way to get around this. There will be a situation where I'm like, I know I'll overcome it, or I'm going to have to pivot or do something else. And like, I kid you not, out of nowhere, some sort of opportunity lands in my lap, or some sort of deal comes my way, or a solution lands on my shoulder. And it's like every single time that I've been in a pinch or a situation, it's just a moment of clarity that lands where I'm like, what the hell was I stressing about? Let's move forward. Do you ever feel that way? I bring this up because you're very faith-based, and a lot of people they don't look at it from that perspective. And I want to get your perspective in terms of what you would call that, right? Some people are like, oh, it's the law of attraction, or it's, your energy's flowing in your same direction. And again, I'm not shooting on any of that. Like, it's all real. I've experienced all of it. But you look at it from a very different perspective in terms of it's your faith and it's something that God does for you, right? I want your thoughts behind all this.
My view on that, and God is just so incredibly creative. And when he created the universe, he built truths into the universe, because the Bible says that blessings fall on the wicked and the righteous, and bad things fall on the wicked and the righteous, right? What we put our mind to, what we focus on, grows. That is just a truth that exists, right? The law of attraction, those things are real. I think the difference in how I see those things is somebody who's faith-based and somebody who's not, somebody who submits to Christ and somebody who doesn't, is they're still operating within the rules and structures of that. The outcome is what's on the other side of that. And I think what's on the other side of that is I can be self-focused or I can be outward focused. I can say, I want this so that I can become something. I have a need of certainty, a need of significance. So I'm going to go get these things so that I can have that. And I believe that there are people who will take that and they'll give to others. And I think that's a beautiful thing that exists here in the earth. But the focus for me is not so I may be glorified, whether I give or whether I do, but that God will be glorified through my actions, and that through my business, it's not just a business. It is literally a ministry because of the lives of the people that we get to touch. We talk with renters, we talk with vendors, we talk with contractors about the Lord. And it's, for me, sowing and reaping, so that the only thing that we can take to heaven is not our homes. It's not our money. It's not our status. It's not our clothes. It's nothing except relationships. And so when we go out and we do business, and I put my faith in the Lord to bring these things to fruition, it's so that God will be glorified and that I can bring as many people to heaven as possible, because I believe that the only way to get into heaven is through Jesus Christ.
Yeah, man, that's beautiful. Every year I do a goal setting, right? That little success circle thing of where I'm at in the 9 aspects of my life. And the one that's always low is my faith one. And so this year I made a point that, I always rated like a 4. And to get it to a 10, the next actionable step I could do was just go to church every Sunday. And again, you and I talk about this often. And I've made a point. It's on my calendar now and I don't miss it. Every Sunday I go. And I got to tell you, it's been one of the greatest things I've done so far. And not only because I feel good about it, right? Because that's not what it's about. It's just me trying to get closer to God in my own way. And the way I look at it is like, I'm going to real estate masterminds to learn from other people about business and real estate. Why not go to church to learn about the book of God for God, right? Like that just to me was like a no-brainer. And that kind of changed the way I looked at it in my perspective. And the reason I bring this up is because the whole story, I've been going every Sunday, and I have this really cool quote. I have it here on my desk, and it's like, what are you so afraid of if nothing in this world belongs to you? And I repeat that saying to myself every single day, right? And I'm like, every single day I say it to myself. Now, I know it was somebody said it like ages ago. Some philosopher from Roman times said it or something like that. I don't remember what it was. But it ties hand in hand where there was a sermon the week before or something like that where the message was basically everything that's given to you is a gift from God. And when you look at everything in that way, you're just going to appreciate everything of life. We're going through, it's like it was a teaching of the book of Ecclesiastes where it's, what's your purpose in life, basically. And it's kind of funny because I've struggled with that quite a bit. Like, what is my purpose in life? I talk about that all the time. Like, I don't know. And my purpose is now I know it's like helping others and teaching people and helping them overcome and just kind of giving. That's like kind of where my purpose lies right now. And it ties together where it's like, if I look at everything that's a gift and then I look at my quote, what are you so afraid of if nothing in this world belongs to you? It's true. Everything I have in this world is a gift, and I'm going to go. I came into earth with nothing and I'm going to leave with nothing. And it does 2 things. And this is just my perspective. Number 1, it gives me the freedom to try things without fear or doubt that either I'm going to succeed or I'm going to fail, because whether I succeed is going to be great and it doesn't matter. And if I fail, it's going to be great and it doesn't matter. Regardless of what action I take, it's not going to matter, because the opportunity, the second part, is the opportunity to be able to do that, because it's a gift from God that I'm here to be able to actually do that. If I wasn't here to talk about this, I wouldn't have the opportunity to be able to have this conversation with you, right? Now, whether some people like it or don't like it, it doesn't matter, because the outcome's going to be good and the outcome's going to be bad. It doesn't matter, right? For example, people that are out here thinking about this right now, and they're like, dude, I've been thinking about starting my first unit or buying my first property, and they're just so scared of doing it. If they really just sit down and think about it, look, the fact that you have the opportunity to be able to do it, right? The gift that you have right now, that you have the mindset and the thought of, hey, I need to go do this. And then you go and do it and you fail or you succeed. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, nothing in this world belongs to you. Like, if you put those things together, again, look, I'm being a little philosophical here or whatever, but when you put those things together, at the end of the day, people should not be afraid to try anything that they want to try or go out and do, and not be stuck in this rut or this little daunting circle that they're just repeating themselves on the day. Every single day you wake up, you go to sleep, you wake up, you go to sleep without trying anything. I make a point to try something new every single day, no matter what it is, right? Whether I look up a new AI video, whether I try something different, whether I go on a walk on a different route, it's try a different coffee, try a different pastry. I don't care what it is. I make a point to try something different new every single day, because I want to try everything that life has to offer based on it being a gift that was given to me to be here and enjoy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's huge. What comes to my mind when you're saying that is this verse in the book of Psalms, which has guided my step literally for the last 2 years, which is Psalm 37:23. I'm pretty sure it's 23. But it says, the steps of the righteous are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in their way. And when you break that verse down, it's okay. The steps of the righteous means I'm moving forward. You have to be God cannot bless steps untaken. right? So the steps of the righteous, I'm moving in a direction, are ordered by the Lord. So if the steps of the righteous meaning I'm looking to God to guide everything that I do. God is righteousness. So if I follow his commands, and because of Christ's death on the cross, we then become righteous, they're ordered by the Lord. How could I even take a wrong step, whether I do the thing or don't do the thing, whether I buy the unit or buy 10 units or whatever the case may be? The steps of the righteous are ordered by the Lord. And I believe that to be righteous is to work the land that is in front of you, because the Bible is very clear on its stance against laziness. The Bible is very clear about staying stagnant and not doing anything unless you are waiting on the Lord, which is a step in itself. So the steps of the righteous are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in your way. Take the step because God is directing your path.
Dude, I love that, man. And thank you for sharing that. I look, we can go on forever about this, and I'm glad we're having different aspects of conversation. Your intro story was so good because, you go from like military to investing, right? All faith-based now. And I'm sure it didn't start that way, right? Then we go into the multifamily stuff, which is like a business aspect. And then we get really deep into faith-based aspect of things. I wish we could keep going on forever, dude. And I don't want to cut it short, but we're running out of time here. And I always ask people the final questions. I took a ton of notes of everything you've been saying because I wanted to touch on a lot of these topics. I'm overall happy with everything we discussed. And something I always do now, season 3 that I'm doing is in the conversation, I find a takeaway that kind of stuck to me, that resonated, where I'm like, right? And you had a lot. You had a lot of fantastic talking points, which I'm having a hard time picking one. And now it doesn't mean that the episode wasn't good or that you only had one takeaway. It's just, there's one thing that stood out. And I wrote it down in the beginning of the episode. But now, towards the end of the episode, there's so many more. But the one I wrote down in the beginning was, you bought one property and your entire retirement amount that you were going to work for your entire life was done with that one property immediately right off the bat. And it's tough to pick this one as my biggest takeaway, but I'm going to choose it specifically because it's a big mindset shift for people. If you think about it, you buy right now, people are like at their job for 30, 40 years. And they're putting money into the retirement account little by little. And sure, there's compounding interest. And, if you start at the age of 20, you're going to have $1.5 million by the time you're probably 60, right? And then that money's just going to keep compounding. There's the power of compounding interest. But for those of you that didn't do that and you're trying to figure out, you're not going to start putting $1,000 a month into a retirement account to catch up. And even if you do that, you're still not going to catch up. But if you go and buy one house right now and you put tenants in it and it slowly pays itself off with appreciation year over year, in 30 years, that house is paid off. You have a pool, a hard asset that you can sell and cash in on a retirement account. And there's a ton of ways to do that tax-free. I don't know. I think I'm going to stick to that one for my takeaway. Again, because there's a lot, dude. Like you talked about the VA loan 0-4 units. A lot of people don't know what that is. And that's a huge takeaway.
You have on that takeaway, not only because we understand this as business owners, we understand this as entrepreneurs, which is not only does one property change your life forever from a financial perspective, but one property changes your life forever on how you view your life, how you value your time, because just that one property changed everything about how I saw my career, how I saw making money, how I saw what I was capable of, and how I saw what life can I lead. And most importantly, it was a massive vote towards who do I want to become. And that is the real value of buying that property. Because the funny thing about that property is we just sold it. The same property that changed my life forever performed so well over the years. What we've done over the last 2 years, that decision and that mindset shift and everything, we've now just continued to make leaps and bounds in our business to where, dude, that property was just a distraction. And so how that property truly changed everything from my perspective to who I'm becoming and to what I'm capable of has just 10, 50, 100x my life.
Yeah, I love that, dude. It's crazy. Again, things fall into your lap. That was another one of these takeaways that I wanted to talk about. Things fall into your lap at the moment that they're supposed to. That property landed to help you get started on your journey and change your perspective and the way you looked at things. And then something because of that came better. And now that property, it's time for it to go because now you have a better opportunity that's now focused, but it wouldn't have happened had that first property not been in your portfolio, right? Yeah, this is great. All right, man. Being that this is the big break show, I only ask this to people that are here for the first time. I want to know, what was your big break in life that got you from old Trevor to new Trevor to where you're at now? Is there one defining moment that you can say, I think it's because of that?
Old Trevor, new Trevor was certainly snapping my leg on that rugby field.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
I was living a life of debauchery, dude. I mean, a young guy in the military with no correction in my life outside of, my superiors in the military. We were wilding out. I mean, it was just, I was going nowhere fast. And after snapping my leg, it was, I equate it to feathers, hammers, and trains. Sometimes in life, God will bring you a feather and he'll say, it's like a little tickle. Hey, you're going in the wrong direction. And, we're entrepreneurs. So, and the folks listening probably understand this as well, hard-headed, right? So I smacked that feather away. Like, no, dude, I'm good. And then once the feather doesn't work, dude, you get the hammer and the hammer smashes your thumb and you're like, oh God, dude, that hurt. But being hard-headed, we continued trudging forward. And then when God's really trying to get your attention, the hammers didn't work. He's going to send the train. And the train is certainly enough to shake up your current perspective. And that was me snapping my leg and making me realize that the life that I was living was leading me nowhere. And I was going to waste a life. I was going to waste the potential that God had instilled in me.
Dude, that was so good. I mean, that was so good. There's nothing else to say about that. That could be probably I want to change my takeaway to that one, right? The feather, hammers, and train. I mean, that was fantastic. I've never heard anybody say it that way. Dude, we didn't even touch on your MC career, man. I wanted to touch on that a little bit, but for those of you guys listening, Trevor has a fantastic YouTube channel that he just started doing. We've been kind of holding each other accountable to drop content, although I've been kind of slacking on you, buddy. I'm sorry. I've been working on building the team. But anyway, look, for those of you listening, go check out his YouTube. We're going to put the links below. He's dropping a ton of content and a ton of knowledge on real estate and just his personal experiences. And additionally, he's a badass MC. I mean, that's how I met him. He was doing the MCing at the Legacy event. I've seen him do the MC at multiple big weekend events and networking events and real estate events. So for those of you, I mean, we wouldn't even touch on that. Maybe I'll put a little clip together of you doing MCing in the intro here, so people kind of get an idea of that. But dude, I mean, this was such a good episode, bro. Seriously, I appreciate you coming on. I'm always trying to find people that are doing things in business and in life that I can bring to the episode that can help and teach and mold and shape others based on their experience. And you didn't disappoint, bro. This was fantastic. No joke. I appreciate you coming on, dude. Let everybody know how they can get a hold of you, where they can reach out to you, how they can bug you with questions, all that fun stuff.
Again, it's an honor to be on the show. It's an honor to have you as a friend. The conversations are always really strong, really insightful. I mean, I can think of, just counting on one hand, the conversations that we have where I left those and there was something that stuck with me. I mean, even just the last time we talked, you had talked about, the problems in life and how, there are some really terrible things happening around life. So how do we really view our problems? And that really shaped some things that I was going through. And just, I value our friendship. And, people can find me on YouTube is Trevor B. West, at Trevor B. West. On Instagram, it's at Better Trevor. And I drop content I drop content weekly on YouTube. And I'm working on the short form. We'll get it back up, but I drop stuff on there from time to time.
Awesome, dude. I appreciate you a ton, man. The feeling is mutual. Thanks for coming on the show, dude.
Yeah. Thank you.